Hi, Tyria, and happy anniversary. Thank you all for being part of our anniversary live stream today. I'm your host, Ruby, and I am so happy you guys are joining us for this. 8 years ago today, in a very different world, our team crowded into one of the common areas in the ArenaNet studios and counted down the final seconds until we could open the doors of Guild Wars 2 to all of you. Since then, the world of Tyria has gotten bigger and better. You and the community have forged bonds with each other in and out of game all over the world, and you've helped us create something truly special. We have loved creating Guild Wars 2 and playing it alongside of all of you for the past 8 years, and we are so excited to keep doing that in the years to come. So thank you all for being here. On today's anniversary live stream, we're going to look back over some of the past year with some of the Guild Wars 2 development team, and we are going to talk about what's to come, and we're going to share a few surprises with you all along the way. Surprises are fun, so do you guys want one right now? Because we can go ahead and do the first one now. Mark, you want to show them? Yep. Guild Wars 2 is coming to Steam this November, and we cannot wait to welcome even more Guild Wars 2 players. We know you guys have a lot of questions right away, and there's a preview page up on Steam right now with more information, and so you can tell your friends to wishlist it, which you should absolutely do. But I will touch on one big question right now, which is, can we play together? If you log in through Steam, you'll still play alongside your fellow Tyrians in the same maps and servers. Whether you log in through Steam or the Guild Wars 2 launcher, everybody plays together. We're not going to split you guys up. Please do note that you can't convert an existing Guild Wars 2 account to a Steam account, or vice versa. You can't convert a Steam account to a non-Steam account. So that is our first surprise. We have more fun stuff to come. But for now, let's get started with our first round of guests. Why don't the three of you introduce yourselves, talk about what you do here at ArenaNet, and what you've worked on for the past year. Let's go Esther, Joe, Kirk.
Okay, hi everybody. I am the QA manager at ArenaNet. So I work with everything that goes out for Guild Wars 2. I don't make it, I don't develop it, but I help guide it and help make sure that it's the best product we can make.
Oh. How about you, Joe?
All right. Hey everyone, I'm Joe Kimmis. I do game design on Guild Wars 2 and work on some of the story updates, releases, as well as festivals and the occasional Guild Wars 1 update.
Awesome. Hi, Kirk.
Hey folks. I'm Kirk Williford. I'm a senior game designer at ArenaNet and a team lead here as well on Guild Wars 2.
Cool. So all three of you have had a super busy year. You certainly haven't been busy. You haven't been bored, have you? Why don't you each give a rundown of what you've worked on the past year and what you've all had your hand in? And this time, let's go Kirk, Joe, Esther.
Sure. So past year, my brain has lost track of what time is at this point. So I guess
start Bound by Blood.
It was Bound by Blood was the first thing in the past year, in which I did a story instance and some of the meta events in that map, as well as some side events and stuff. From there, I helped work on some polish and touch-up stuff on Shadow in the Ice, episode 2. And then I was team lead for episode 3 and 4, which was No Quarter and Jormag Rising. So.
Cool.
All right. I'm going next, right?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, fortunately, I can track it by festival releases. So we had Halloween last year, then Winter's Day, Lunar New Year. Let's see which came out first. I was the team lead on the team that made the Visions of the Past Steel and Fire episode. And then April Fool's Day, Super Adventure Festival, the Guild Wars 1, what are we up to? 15th anniversary?
Yeah.
Dragon Bash, and we are right now in Guild Wars 2. You can play Festival to 4 Winds. So get in there and finish up your meta. You've got about 1 week left.
I don't have time. Go ahead, Esther.
Well, like I said, I don't make the game. I just help it become the best it can be. And so I've been involved with all of the things listed and building gear templates. Anything that goes out goes through QA, and I rely on my embeds and my analysts to tell me where our issues are and to make sure that everyone is aware if we have enough time. So all of Living World, all the quality of life. One of my people helped Joe with Guild Wars 1. I have a analyst who loves Guild Wars 1, and anything that comes up, he owns it. So basically, I get to see everything everybody else makes and tell them how awesome it is.
That sounds good. And point of fact, you do in fact work on the game because you help us get it live. So it absolutely
Yeah, you could
counts,
list all
and
that
you
stuff.
are awesome. Yeah, totally. So I want to hear about what some of your highlights over the past year were. What were some of your favorite things? Joe, I'm going to have you go through some of yours first, because partly because I really like the pictures that you shared.
All right, got my highlights reel, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's see. So definitely for me, one of the big highlights of the last year was, like I mentioned, the Steel and Fire episode coming out. We had a ton of fun making that, and we kind of got the opportunity to play around a little and do something a little different for an update. The idea with that one was we put a team on doing a story kind of update that didn't necessarily have to um, like have all the same components as we would normally do. Like, for example, it didn't have a new open world map, or
Mhm.
and didn't quite. It continued the story, but in sort of a side story fashion. So we had a little room to play around there, and got to do uh, a mission I really enjoyed helping build in the Forging Steel mission, where you get to play as one of the new recruits of the Steel Warband and meet Ryland and his team, and kind of get a more intimate look at them than you would get to do as the commander. And it just turned into one of my favorite things because we got to have um, sort of the situation of being Ryland's warband and figuring out,
Mhm.
okay, like what challenges are they going to face? Like, we want to have them going up through this mountain pass, and we want to use the mount technology that we've been developing to have a tank that you can actually jump into and like get on the turrets. And then we're like, all right, like who are you going to fight? Because we don't really want to have you fighting just whoever, or fighting the same kind of things you've been fighting in previous episodes. And we ended up picking the Stone Summit Dwarves, who were a recurring villain from Guild Wars 1. And so we got
Yeah.
to learn a little about what they've been up to, and like you fight this kind of remnant faction of them that is um, somehow still around through dark magics and terrible decisions that they've made. Which also meant that we got to reuse the Forgeman as the climactic boss of that whole mission. So I kind of got to like um, live my personal dream of making a mission where we got to ride around in a tank and shoot a giant robot.
And that's what it's all about. Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember that
we got
Forgeman.
this picture of that showdown. I think this picture I fished up from some early a prototype version of the map, where
Mhm,
like this was the first time we had kind of all the art coming together on this guy, and I got this picture
mhm.
to show to the rest of the studio. Because it was like just the moment we had that all come together, I was like, all right, this is actually going to be really cool. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, that moment it starts
And
to gel is always such a fun one.
yeah, and the rest of my team just did an incredible job putting this together. Like, um, we were kind of like, oh yeah, we'll reuse the Forgeman, and like, I guess we'll have to change out its beam attack because it's kind of purpose built for the dungeon it was in before. And
Mhm.
let's ask the artists if we can get a second arm on that guy, because you fought the Forgeman in one of the early dungeons in Guild Wars 2, and it only has one arm compared to the Guild Wars 1 incarnation. So we asked the artists, hey, like, okay, can we get this with a second arm? I know it probably doesn't have the animation for that, but don't spend too much time. It doesn't have to be like you don't have to fully convert it to the Guild Wars 1 version. We just wanted to
Mhm.
evoke the Guild Wars 1 version a little more.
Right.
Because the other one you fight is also kind of scrap built by the dredge out of parts, as far as you know. Um, and like they came back with like, okay, here's the version with 2 arms. We're gonna work on it a little more. I'm like, hey, this is looking great. Like, um, it's good at this point. And then they
Mhm.
came back with just this incredible version of it that has like lava vents and all this stuff going on.
I like when our teams get excited and they're like, "But wait, there's more. I'm not done with this. I'm gonna make it even more awesome." So you guys did a good job on that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I hope people enjoyed it.
Um, do you wanna talk about the sword from that episode?
Yeah, sure. So that's another element where like um, we really got to make kind of the best of what we were imagining. So a big thing we tried to hit on in the Steel and Fire release was um, fleshing out Ryland's character more and letting you see more of him, because as you know now, he was going to be quite a bit more important as the story continued. And up until then, you'd kind of just seen him in passing. Like you see him during the prologue release, just kind of around, and he hangs out with Bram, but you don't hang out with him. He's just kind of standing around next to Bangar a bunch.
Mhm.
Um, and so this was our chance to see him, for one, when he's not hanging out with Bangar, and you see kind of another side of his personality when he's with his warband, and there's some camaraderie. But we also had to figure out, like, an early question we had was, all right, like, uh, has anyone decided what class Ryland is? Like, do we know what his deal is? We see him fighting a little bit, but it's just kind of generic greatsword stuff in the
Mhm.
prologue. So we had some brainstorms about like what's Ryland's deal, what's going to make him exciting. We're going to have this story mission where you play as him. So like, what makes him interesting there? And the big thing we kept hitting on was there were a couple incarnations where we wanted to kind of play off his relationship with Ritlock and
Mhm.
um, what's similar about them and what's different about them. And um, something that we kept thinking about to show that visually was like, all right, maybe like is Ryland more um, like technological? Like maybe he's an engineer, uh, or does he have gadgets that he uses, and that sets him apart from Ritlock, who between his magical sword and revenant powers has a much more kind of mystic feel to him. And
Sure.
we kind of like went around on that. Like for a while, he had like grappling hooks and like grenade launchers and stuff. We backed off that a little, but the thing that we kept from that series of brainstorming was the idea that Ritlock has his magic sword, Sahothan, the fiery
Mhm.
dragon sword from Guild Wars 1. And we wanted to kind of have the parallel of that, where, uh, and that became like, all right, so Ryland will have his own fire sword, but it's technological, right? And we went through a couple rounds of like, all right, so he has a flamethrower sword. That's cool. And we're like, all right, so um, there was an earlier like, all right, he's an engineer and he has a tech sword, so it'll be like a chainsaw sword. And at some point, we put those together. This is my concept art that I drew on one of our whiteboards back at the office of the chainsaw flame sword that became the flame saw later. We actually sent this to the artists along with some other reference, and I was incredibly, incredibly pleased that they were like, "All right, we'll make that, I guess." Um, there was an incarnation of it where we tried to have the torches on it spinning chainsaw like.
Mhm.
Um, it didn't really work. You couldn't tell what was going on, but I am incredibly, incredibly happy about how that turned out. And it became this very, very unique and fun thing that you got to do as Ryland is um, break out the flame saw, and we got a unique saw animation for him to like press it against things and burn through them.
The concept art is fantastic. I personally would buy a print of that. I'm not sure what I'd do with it, but it would entertain me. So you got your chainsaw flame sword
Yeah.
concept art. And then it was time for April Fools just about. You get to work on things.
Oh yeah. Okay.
too.
We had sent some pictures of that too. All right. So April Fools, every year we try to do some kind of cool thing for the players, or some little joke going on. In
Mhm.
past years, we've done stuff like, let's see, I think, was it the first year or the second year that we had bobblehead mode? The
Oh,
Super Adventure
yeah.
Box itself was an April Fool's joke one year, and we've kind of gradually tried to migrate it towards being a festival rather than our April Fool's joke and and Super Adventure Box always fighting each other. Um, we did Sitting in Chairs, which was something I also worked on, and I'm still a huge fan of the trailer for that. Go look it up.
That was really good.
This year, um, we kind of fell back on one of my team's recurring jokes of like cats are always funny. So the April Fool's gag we did was you get sent a letter by a character who has shown up occasionally in text, the king of all cats, who um, tells you a bunch of really important things that you can't read because it's written in cat, but also sends you a few tonics that you can use to, I don't know, peer beyond the veil and see invisible cats that you couldn't see before.
Fantastic.
And so while you have
God.
this tonic, one, cats start just appearing around you at all times, and two, in certain areas of the game, I think all the capital cities and a couple areas around them, you can see these giant cats just like looming on the horizon. And the amount of work that went into making giant invisible cats was actually kind of surprising. There's some like, engine details that made it resist the concept of giant cats. Like you're not supposed to see anything that's too far away from you. So you can see on the upper left there's the giant cat looming on the horizon. This is because when we made the giant cat visible from very far away, the wall it's behind wasn't visible from that far away. So you just see the floating cat.
Fantastic.
And also, I can't actually place a giant cat just floating. It's supposed to be on the ground because it's a cat. So all the giant cats have this like hand-built offset where they are actually standing on the ground somewhere safe, but um, have a buff on them that causes them to float 1,000 feet up and 500 feet back, or whatever for each individual cat.
Yeah. Just to
Um,
get them
but
each one exactly where you want it.
yep, and that all came together though, and like one of my favorite details was the audio team came to us and they're like, "Hey, what's going on for April Fools?" And we're like, "Well, there's all this stuff with these giant cats. We've already kind of got cat sounds, so we figured we'll just use those." And they're like, "Well, we'll check it out. We'll see what we can do." And they came back a couple days later with, uh, for one, as these cats phase in and out around you, they have this incredible like they make a kind of mystical sounding meow noise that also like as they vanish, it cuts out
Mhm.
as if they were meowing and then got portaled and now you
Just
don't hear it
disappeared.
anymore.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
every couple minutes, I think, if you have the tonic effect on and are in a zone with a giant cat, you will hear the giant cat's like deep foghorn like meow.
Fantastic.
So that was way
So
more than I expected, and I really enjoyed it.
you've had some fun highlights this past year. Um, I know I know we're all been super busy. You guys have all been rolling from one piece of content to the next, to the next, to the next right away. So getting to pause and play around and do fun stuff like that is, I imagine, a nice breather.
For sure.
So Esther, can we talk about some of your highlights of the past year? Because you've had a super interesting year.
It's fine. This year's been
Oh,
no, this year has been awesome. I mean, if you ask the things that stuck out of my head, Kirk's game, and hopefully you'll talk about it a little bit in the prologue, was a particular favorite because it was using technology that I am terrified of, and he made it work and work well. And I'm much less terrified now that everybody wants to use it. But collaborating with the teams, I get to work with each of the individual development teams on each episode or feature with the engineers and the artists to a point. And so all of it is just been watching everybody just work really hard to get everything out has been amazing to watch. And them being receptive to my team telling them there's issues, like there's bugs, and they are like, okay, we'll fix them. Like the relationship that we have as a team with QA and design and engineering and art and everybody else, it's just been really professionally rewarding at ArenaNet, and this year especially, as we've had all these extra challenges working from home.
yeah, and we're going to get to that too, because I do want to touch on that. I know we've done a guild chat about working from home, but there's a lot there as far as how it relates to shipping the game. Kirk, Esther mentioned those new tools, and I do know you had it in your list to talk about. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I still remember how that first conversation with Esther went. It's like, I walked over to her desk. I was
no.
like, so I'd like to do an event where you're on a bunch of moving platforms in the open world. And she's like, okay, it's fine. Yeah.
This is
All the
fine.
credit there really goes to Joel. That was an event that when I was building it and blocking it out, I didn't think it would end up being as technically taxing as it might have ended up being. And he was my lifesaver more than once on that. Just trying to get that stuff working. The thing that Esther is talking about in general is moving platforms. It's something that you kind of take for granted when you see them, because it's like, oh yeah, it's just a platform that moves. But a lot of goes into getting that working right. For a while we had an issue where your character would. So if you were on a moving platform so to give some context to it, in Prologue, there's an event where you're on a moving platform shooting targets in the air, just balloons, right? It's like a training exercise for adolescent Char. And essentially what happens is you stand on a platform looking around in like almost a third-person shooter mode and clicking targets to shoot at them, but you're not moving your character most of the time. And so what we're running into is that even though you're technically moving, your client or the game didn't think you had moved until since the last time that you actually physically moved, like pressing your WASD or arrow keys or however you move around in the game, right? So, oh, hi, Cat.
Hey, how
Cat
are you?
bombed. So essentially what happened is, hidden cat. There you go. Thanks, Joe. Press the button.
Good work,
so
Joe.
what happened is you'd shoot the gun, and your missile your projectile from the gun would come shoot out of the gun from way down where you used to be. And it's like, what the heck is going on? Like, we couldn't figure out what's happening. And then Joel, like I said, was just the savior there and looked into it a whole bunch. Is like, oh, this is what's happening. And him and I worked together a whole bunch, to get that thing working. And that event is special to me from Prologue, along with the Char Chef event, just because that episode, a lot like the team was able to do so many cool, unique things in that episode that we haven't really done before, like those two events and like Connor's awesome concert, and like Frosty's Flame Legion stuff. There's just a lot of cool little fun things here in the entire episode that was just exciting to make, even though it was still technically challenging. So
yeah, building a whole new event and trying to figure out how to use new tools was a thing that I know you had to fiddle with and terrify Esther for a little while. But I feel like you made it work, and this is a little bit later episode, I think. But do you want to talk about working with cinematics to get Bengar's speech up and running?
Sure. That actually was the same episode. So
Okay, I was like,
the
oh
end
gosh,
of
was it
Bound by
0 or 1?
It's the final instance of Bound by Blood. So spoilers if you haven't
Thank you.
played the prologue yet, first you should go do that. But at the very end of the episode, Bangar gives a rousing speech to all of the now Dominion Char that have followed him into the Shiver Peaks. And that was a moment that we wanted to have feel very cinematic and really, build up Bangar for what he is and what his character is becoming, right? But we didn't really have the time to make it a full-fledged cinematic. So that was a case of I worked together with Chelsea, our cinematics lead, and she kind of coached. I'm not a cinematics artist by any means, so she coached me
Right.
into the best like cinematography techniques, the pans, the zooms, all that good, those technical terms, all that good stuff. And on my end, I was building a rather admittedly complicated, probably more than it needed to be, system of in-game cameras that kind of redirect and act as if it's moving around like a cinematic would. And that was really fun, and just learning the cinematic technical side as well as trying to get that working in-game as an in-game cinematic. That was another one that was like really tricky, and there's a lot of things to learn from it. But as we used it in the first instance of that episode as well, because it turned out it's like, yeah, we could maybe get some more use out of this, and I think it was used in another episode as well. But yeah, so it's just like really exciting going through that and iterating with her, and she gave me so much helpful feedback and direction the entire way. Just being able to collaborate with cinematics more directly, than design might at other times. That was really fun and exciting. So.
Yeah. So I do want to. We have a lot of ground to cover today, so I'm trying to keep us on track. I want to make sure that you talk about a more community side thing too, because you helped do the work to get the winners of our friendships contest into the game, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, I worked together with Annie, who will be on later, Shane Michael, one of our narrative designers, Bobby Stein, who's I don't know, it's technique. My echo's going off. 1 moment, please. The good times of home living. Anyway, so working with Bobby Stein as well, narrative lead. I think he's actually narrative design manager. I don't remember his term anyway. Anyway, all of them work together, getting the friendships context winners in. Trying to figure out the best way to have it feel like they're part of the world, and interacting with the world. And it's just really exciting because it shows the passion of our players of the game. They're really excited about it, which makes us excited about it. We like to acknowledge that kind of stuff as much as we can. So that's really fun. And Annie did an awesome job putting together the composites based on the looks that we were sent. So it really looked like their characters. And then Shane Michael and Bobby both helped write their blurbs in game that they talked to you with. So it was all coming together, and it was a really fun side project for all us to work on. To it's not just because it was it's a contest, but it's also acknowledging the community that we're all a part of. So that was really neat.
Yeah, definitely. Quick question. Did your echo go off for the reason I think it went off?
No.
Oh, okay. Darn. I got excited.
I wish. No.
That's okay. It still might.
It's telling
We
me to
have
close my
15
windows.
minutes. Oh, okay. Well, I guess if you need to go do that, you can.
It's fine.
I want to spend a little bit of time talking to all three of you about the challenges and how you've worked around having to work from home. Some of us are thousands of miles away. But none of us are in the office where we can just walk over to each other's desks, or, hey, can we grab a room real quick to talk about this? Or, hey, random kitchen meeting. Do you guys just want to talk a little bit about the past, oh gosh, like 8 months?
It's been like a
And
week, right?
Esther, it's like the 350th of March. Time has no meaning for any of us anymore. Esther, I'll
So
start with you
much.
because yours is kind of wild.
So I am actually not in Washington right now. I am down at my mother's house in Arizona. I left Washington at the end of March and marathoned it down here. I don't recommend that, by the way. That sucked. I had some family things I needed to help out with, and I've been here ever since, kind of helping with family. So I am spending the worst season to not be in Washington. Like, this is when you want to be there, and I'm down here. But it worked out because we're working from home, but it's hard. It's watching. I can't, like Ruby said, Kirk, you'll remember this. I can't go over and stare at someone until they write their documentation. It wasn't Kirk, his was written. I can't just pull someone in a room and have a conversation or anything like that. And so it's been hard. Cool thing is I'm going home on Friday. I'm very excited. And where I go home to is I've been in this kind of larger home since the end of March. And I'm going back to my house, which is kind of small. And I think we have pictures of my house. Yeah, I live on a houseboat. That's 343 square feet. I love it. I miss it. But I'm going, like, that's all my stuff as we moved in. That's where my bed is. The descent into insanity that will happen. And there's the pooch and the lake. So we'll see and that was winter of 19, those huge snowstorms that we had. I think that was my favorite picture of that. It has limited electricity. I can't wash clothes and heat at the same time. There's a lot of challenges. It's wonderful, but my descent into insanity by Christmas may be entertaining for everyone else to watch, because it is small, and when it gets cold, there's not a lot of time to spend outside. And I have a buddy that's going to hang out with me, so he makes it a little bit easier.
So how are you getting back home? Are you marathoning back up?
I'm going to marathon to my brothers in the Bay Area, and then kind of, because California's burning, evaluate. I may be there for a little while, and then I'll be back.
Yikes.
The idea being I don't want to stay in a hotel. I want to have as little contact with other people as possible, and then I'll quarantine for 2 weeks when I get home.
Okay. Yeah. Can I ask one more question? Can I ask that you share the name of your houseboat? You don't have to.
The name it is, or the name I want to make it, because those are two different things.
Oh, I only know one. So
yeah, when it was sold to me, it is Totes My Boats. It's on the legal documents. But seriously, yeah. So I may or may not change it. But so I'll tell a little bit of story behind it. When I first started playing when I first started working at ArenaNet and was inside the game all the time and everything, my brain took. I swore there was a zone called Sparklefly Fen for like a year.
Oh, right.
So finally, yeah, corrected me. I'm like, no, and I actually pulled up the map. I'm like, oh, I'm totally wrong. So I've been trying to get something called Sparklefly Fen in the game forever. And if I change the name of my boat, it will be the Sparklefly Fen.
I love it.
Ruby, I have
Sparklefly Fen.
I think that'd be fun. I have the things that came in the mail. If you want to
go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So we have masks from By Fans for Fans. It is I have the Quaggan. These came like yesterday. I have the Quaggan, and I have my little cactus guys. What are they called? Choyos. Choya. Trying to get it on the screen. And these are By Fans that came in the mail. Pretty well. I'm happy with them. I'm excited to use them on my trip back home.
Well, drive safe. Be very, very careful. And we in the boat will be glad to have you back home. So, Kirk, how's pandemic life going for you? I see you got a home air conditioner.
Yeah, that has been a necessary giant. You know, it's hot that's something that we kind of
Ugh.
took for granted going into the office every summer. Is we're in an air-conditioned office during the hottest part of the day, and now I'm in a smaller room with a very warm PC. So that's been fun. But pandemic life has been okay. Trying to hope everyone stays safe and takes it seriously. But I still remember kind of how that conversation went back in first March. Whereas now we're what, in 7th, 5th? I don't know, some March.
I have no idea.
Yeah, because we were in the middle of episode 3's development at the time, and it was just like, how are we going to do this? Because we
Mhm.
have obviously never had to deal with something like this before. And just trying to, like Esther said, I can't walk over to her desk and say, hey, can we using moving platforms anymore? I have to call her on Teams and beg for forgiveness. But we make do, and as I've said before, our IT team and producers, they really did an awesome job of getting us online really quickly, so we were able to have not too much downtime and get back on track. So just trying to learn how to communicate with folks and learn that I'm not as introverted as I thought I was in terms of, no, I'm at home. It's fine. No, I need people. I need to see people, because as a designer, I can't look, turn around and be like, hey, Annie, what do you think about this idea? Or I got a pitch for you, or hey, Eric, come take a look at this. I might need some programming bits for it. So it's a lot more complicated and more communication is necessary. But we've all learned to become better communicators because of it.
Yeah.
Documentation has to be super clear. We have to be very precise in how we're vocalizing or typing things in Teams. Tone is impossible to tell via text. So,
Yeah.
Giving and receiving feedback, you need to be very aware of how you're doing that. So that's been interesting, but it's been a good learning experience. But I look forward to the day where we can all come back together and have a waffle party or something. So.
Oh man, yeah, release day waffles have not been a thing.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on, you mentioned that tone is impossible to convey, and I was thinking about that a week or so ago. I got a private message on Teams from another employee who just was like, "Hey, I just wanted to apologize. I feel like I was really snappy with you and I was rude and I'm very sorry." And I'm sitting there going, "I don't know what you're talking about." But okay, and he
Yep.
clarified, and it was, if we were in the office, that would have been a 2-second conversation shouted across our pod. So it is, I mean, it sounds like such a little thing, but it does add such an huge extra layer to every single interaction that we're having right now.
Yep, for sure.
So, in our last few minutes, how about you, Joe?
Yeah, so I think for me, um, the big like excitement for working from home was, um, you know, back in March, we were like, okay, hey everyone, like, this might be a thing. Make sure you have your home workstations all set up. Like, get this
Mhm,
taken care of now because we don't want everyone taking care of it in a hurry if it becomes a thing. Um,
mhm.
and my team was in the midst of, finishing up Visions of the Past, Steel and Fire at that moment. We were like, all right, okay, well, fine, fine, I'm fine. I'll take care of it. Like, whatever. And then it became a thing. And we were like, oh, okay, everyone just, best practices, start working from home. Uh,
Right.
and, we'll see where it goes. We'll reevaluate this next week. And we're like, hey, we're like a week from shipping our thing from Steel and Fire
The
going out.
concept
And
the concept of "We'll reevaluate this next week" now seems so weird.
we did that a couple times.
Yeah.
And so we were like, all right, no big deal. Since stuff is in the final stages of the pipeline, like we weren't going to change it much anyway, right? Or Esther would be really mad at us. So um, we were like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, work from home. We can be working on, follow up bug fixing updates if we need to. And surely we'll be back in the office for the actual ship, right? Like
Oh my
everyone will just
gosh.
stay home for a week. This will all blow over. Um, and we'll be good to go. And it became increasingly like, okay, we're not coming back to the office, and uh, so like the release day, we were figuring out, okay, like how are we playing the game from home while still checking emails and responding to bugs and coordinating all of that was hugely different. Um, I think like the night before that release, we had a really severe bug show up, and um, coordinating that with everyone who was, in different states of working from home or different states of availability was a whole lot of fun. And I was really impressed by the team for coming together and getting that figured out and getting through it.
Yeah. We were still
Just
learning at
for,
that point. We were still learning
yeah,
how to do this.
you would get to the final boss of the chapter, and if you happened to use stealth during a particular attack, they would just lock up and you couldn't kill them.
Ooh. So it wasn't like,
It
oh, they're
wasn't we
stuck and now
found.
we can just plink them.
Yeah, it was
No,
something we found at the last minute on live,
Yay.
and
Oh my
Joe's team
gosh.
was great.
yeah, we managed to get
Yeah,
that
we
fixed up.
are.
We had to slow down the story a little, but it all worked out.
The cat is not having it, Kirk.
I had to.
But we all have our
Yeah.
we all have our work from home companions. So
That's
I
right.
had my cat
yeah,
here
it
the
is.
whole stream, and she just left. So
Did she take
you're out of
off?
luck.
I have no idea where
Yeah.
my pets are. They're around here somewhere. Um, yeah, it has been a learning experience. You guys have all handled it like champions. Yay, the dog is cooperating. Thank you. The rest of us have cats and they don't care. All right. Well, thank you all for your time. I appreciate it. And we're going to take a short break and then come back with our next round of guests. Thank you guys for spending some time with us again on the anniversary live stream as we look over the past year of Guild Wars 2 development. And we have some more fun stuff coming for you guys. So stick around and we'll be right back.
We are Metal Legion! And we're here to put the band back in Warband! Commander! Hey! It's Bram! I have hair again! First warband to last time, horns, claws, veins, bound by blood. Shoulder to shoulder, steady and right. Blood. We attack waving, no retreat, no defeat. Bound by blood. Gush, specters, they fall, they fade, charade. This is our song, our mission, our rule. We are pure, we are sure. We are one legion, united, our blood. We are sure, legion, united, our blood. Legion, united, our blood. Oh, you ain't heard nothing yet? We're just getting started! Be proud, Char forever.
All right, welcome back, and thank you all again for spending some time on our anniversary stream. We are up with our next 3 developer guests, and Nick, please be careful, don't hurt yourself.
No promises.
I'll let you
Absolutely
guys
no promises.
introduce yourselves and talk about what you do at ArenaNet. Let's go Annie, Cameron, Nick, because that's the order you are on my screen.
Hi, I'm Annie Vandermeer. I'm a senior game designer, and I worked on Living World Chapters 3 and a little bit of help with 4.
Oh, Cameron, you're muted. Working from home.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I'm Cameron. I'm a game designer, and I worked on Living World Episode 2 and some other cool things we'll talk about later.
Yeah. Nick?
Hi, my name is Nick Hernandez, and I am a game designer here at ArenaNet. I've worked on episodes 1, 2, and 4, and most recently the Citadel Siege and all the masteries for episode 4 for my sweet children.
Perfect.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
That works. Cameron, do you want to talk about some of your highlights over the past year?
Sure. So the big thing that we did for episode 2 that I took point on was Drakkar, the world boss that a lot of people end up going crazy over and killing their friends whenever they can't beat the boss. And that was a really fun release because we got to work with a bunch of different artists from all different professions, creature art, animation, effects, everything to really kind of bring that boss together. We've got a blog post out there if you're more interested in getting a behind the scenes look. But it was also one of the first times that we've shipped a world boss and done a release afterwards that kind of like tuned it up and brought some extra rewards to it, added some additional fun little flavor mechanics, including the aforementioned going crazy whenever you fail the event and being able to have open world PvP. Woo! Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
That was. All right. Nick, how about you? What were some of your favorites over the past year?
Before I actually go into that, I just also want to kind of touch on the fact that like not only was it a world boss that we updated later on, but on top of that, it was I think one of the first world boss that we ever released alongside a Living World episode, which
Oh, yeah.
had its own trials and tribulations, which is also a huge feat because world bosses in and of themselves are a huge time investment. So it was a big one. As for my highlights, I think definitely. Of course, there's the Citadel Siege for episode 4, and there's the Masteries for episode 4. Those took a lot, and I was really happy with the outcome. But of course, besides that, there's all the weird bugs that we'll get into because I do love me some bugs. that's it for right now. Stay tuned.
All right. How about you, Annie?
Well, I joined the team in the beginning of December, so I think by this count, yeah, I've definitely spent more time out of the office than in the office now. I was lucky enough to go to PAX East, where I spent a lot of time with really excellent fans and a lot of time with my beloved Flame Saw, which was the incredible saw mentioned before. Ryland's amazing saw was made into an actual prop, which was heavy as heck. And
It was
people got
30
to pose with it
pounds, I
and everything.
think.
Oh, you actually, yeah, that tracks.
That is what I was told.
So that makes sense. I was just like holding that thing the whole time, and as for every moment that I wasn't saying hi to people, and was at the booth, I was like, "Please let me hold the sword. Please let me hold the sword." There's like 17 pictures of me with that sword, but it was very important to me to be involved in the friendships campaign and seize the awkward. It was a lot of fun. I felt really special being able to do, as Kirk mentioned, the composites for the winners of that. That was very special. And I also really enjoyed in episode 3 making players do a war crime. That was really great. Seriously, I did enjoy having being able to participate in putting together stuff with the Char Civil War, bringing back Snarl and Galena and having this like little bright light with them, even as everything else is falling apart into chaos and ruin. So I do like an occasional little bright light.
That's allowed. in between your war crimes, I guess.
Yeah, the bomb down the air shot. Yeah.
Yeah, that was I was telling someone else that I was playing through with a guildmate on that, and like every episode he kept being like, "Man, Smoder's a jerk. Smoder's a jerk," like increasing concern. And then we got to that part and he was like, "Oh, well, that sure did happen." So thank you from him, and thank you for me, because his reactions in real time were a thing of beauty. So it was, yeah, every time he was like, "Oh man, Smoder's a jerk," and I'm actually censoring a little bit there, but I'm just sitting there like, "You have no idea. You don't know
Game
what's coming."
development.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about
Story team who shipped the game. I was at ArenaNet from 2009 to 2013, and I'm always wary of being the person on the team who's like, back in my day, or like, I love this one character that nobody, things have happened in the interim, but it was really cool that I didn't come off as being like random and old when I mentioned those two, that people seemed actually interested in them, because there was a lot of focus on being able to reach into the past and bring these characters back that people remembered, or even if they didn't, to make them worthwhile. And I liked having a sort of situation where it wasn't just me being like, and now kiss. It made sense to bring them back. The whole reason that they had this friction before was, we're from two different legions, and basically getting a chance to sort of highlight, well, that doesn't really matter now. Like, there's dragons of the worlds falling apart and there's a civil war, and let's hold on to what's good. And that ended up being a little bit more prescient in the let's hold on to what's good than in a chaotic world than I had kind of thought it would be. But hey, 2020,
that is
man.
a little on
Who
the
knows?
nose. Oh, I did not realize. Yeah, that's just right there, isn't it? So, but they are good, and they bring happiness to our game. So leave them.
They're
Don't
also an
touch it.
adorable
Nobody hurt them.
sassafras. Yeah, no, I will protect
Yes.
them with my life.
Thank you. So you also, so you came back just in time for like a mountain of snow to dump on us, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh boy, it was like 3 weeks in the office, and then we were supposed to come back in January, and then it was like, nope, there's going to be snowmageddon. So it was like a dry run for having everything set up to have a home office already. Yay! And I'd worked at an indie studio before where I'd worked from home, so I sort of knew the basic setup that I needed to have. Also unexpectedly helpful. But yeah, such I know I need to stop being so flippin' prescient. I don't enjoy it. But yeah, it was interesting being able to it was amazing and surreal to be back. And then I guess in a weird way it felt fitting, because I think it was 2011 there was a kind of snowmageddon as well, where, let me tell you, the ability to work from home was not as good then, and we had like a VO deadline we were running up against, so there was definitely some crunch going back to the office back then. So it's much smoother now. I count my blessings in that regard.
Yeah, there's that. Do you want to talk about the scripting that you've had to deal with and how things changed in between your last tenure and when you came back home? Formally, welcome home, by the way.
It is good to be back.
Yes.
Man, yeah. I mean, in the early days of Duo, which is the internal tool set that we use, stuff was built to have kind of a plug and play kind of system to it, for lack of a better word. It was if you wanted functionality that didn't already exist, like, you had to come to a programmer with a pitch, not just, this is what I want to use this for, but here are other situations in which it could be used. So it was a longer process. Things were simpler, but you turned out content really fast. And coming back to it later and seeing the millions of different ways in which people have taken these older simple systems, like buffs and the magic of tripwires, and monkeyed with them so much to have these incredibly complex, occasionally frustrating, but really brilliant ways of handling things. Like even the things deliberately added to the game. Like when I was first part of the very beginning part of Living World, the player character could not talk. Like the idea of having scenes in which the player character talked was impossible. And they told us it was like functionally not a thing that could be done. And that changed really quickly. And I was pleased to see that as a fan, that it was that changed. And it's like steps like that, as well as how things are put together, are much more complex, but so much more robust. And the idea of even doing things like the diffusal mechanic on the submarines that I did for Chapter 3, that I blatantly just ripped off of something in Chapter 0 of with a like furnace mechanic, I think it was. That I can't imagine being able to do that in what we had to ship the game with. And I learned a lot. I have been learning a lot, and seeing how everything is coming along is really opened the doors, I think, for a lot of designers to be really incredibly creative, and probably, and you'd have to ask Esther about this, QA to be incredibly frustrated. So good. I would say net good. Net very good.
I'm waiting for Esther to like yell "yes" in my ear.
Yes,
Like, it's true.
Tell her this. She must know.
Awesome. So, what were some of your other highlights? What were some of the other you haven't been here the whole year. You haven't been back the whole year, but it has been a packed few months. So
yeah,
because you get to make composites again.
Yeah. Oh, that was something that back in the original campaign, it was I hate to say like a desperation maneuver, but it was. I mean, you might have noticed. Guild Wars 2 has a lot of characters in it, and especially a lot in the personal story. And Art was slammed with having to do just an incalculable amount of things, and having a sort of situation in which basically the view model, the thing that that things are put together in. Imagine just like the best paper doll kind of situation, where you have all the shiniest things that artists put together, and you get to just make this character look as cool as you want. And I'm also a nerd for story, so the fact that I got to go and chat with other designers and be like, what do you think they should have, and put these characters together, and that we had a pipeline process for, even me as a designer who should probably not be touching art, to say, hey, I had this idea, and pass it through an art pipeline and have somebody improve it. I mean, every opportunity that I have to get involved in as much of developing a character as possible, how they look. The few times I got involved with casting, like Tybalt, oh my boy, that's been incredibly meaningful to me as a designer. And I've always said that the more you can get more people excited about content, excited about a character, the better everything becomes. So yeah, I'm very grateful that anytime I get to make a composite, when somebody mentions to me that, oh yeah, could you make this thing? I just get hugely elated. Like, yes, I get to play with some toys again.
I can make a thing. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome.
Things.
All right, so
like
and you like putting things in the game, so it works out well for all of us. So, Cameron, how about you? You mentioned working on Drakkar was one of your highlights. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because that was a huge thing over the past year.
Yeah, sure. So, like Nick was saying, it's one of the first world buses that we've done in a long time, and with Living World. If I remember correctly, the last ones that we did were the Vinewrath and Silver Wastes, and then we did the Death Branded Shatterer, which was kind of like a mini world boss in season 4. And then for Drakkar, we knew that we really wanted to do another big prop boss. and we had this goal in mind of, okay, the thing that players remember the most about Drakkar is seeing him in Guild Wars 1 underneath the ice. So we definitely want to do something with the ice. And when we went to the artists and we're like, okay, what if he was like swimming under the ice and he would come out of the ground and it'd be like super scary, like you're fighting a shark that can go through ice that can also like come out of the ice and fight you. And they're like, whoa, hold on a second there. Do we? And we didn't actually know if we had the technology and the shaders possible to really show him underneath the ice swimming around, just because of the way that materials work in our game. But everybody kind of came together behind this vision of what he was going to do, and we used a lot of honestly really brilliant. Really brilliant solutions to overcome some of the bigger challenges that we had. And I think it turned out really well. I think it's definitely it's one of my favorite encounters in terms of like spectacle, just because you can see him like swimming through with the shadow. You see him pop out, and he's got all of these like attacks that kind of reach across the room, do a ton of damage to everybody around there. And he encourages people to move around the room because usually our prop bosses don't actually like move a whole lot, and you end up like just sitting in one spot and waiting for their hand to come down, and then you're like, okay, everybody back up, do this one thing, go back there. But with Drakkar, we really wanted to have him moving around, going from left to right to middle, and that gets people to be a lot more mobile and active. That was a lot of fun too.
Yeah,
and
it
then
was interesting. Go ahead.
Sorry, no, you.
It was interesting hearing from Lee talking about getting those shadows moving. I know we did a guild chat about that, and the amount of work behind something that seems that simple. It's like, well, of course, he just moves around like you or I would. You just get up and move. And what an endeavor that was behind the scenes. Really spoke to your guys' work. So that was awesome. Now you.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of iteration between the two. Thank you. And there were a bunch of different prototypes that we ended up doing to see if like, can we have his model actually like sit behind the ice, and do we animate the actual model to do this thing, or can we use shadow cards, or there were a lot of different solutions that were thrown there. And the other big thing with prop bosses is that because you have so many people on the screen at one time, because you have so many people in a map working together, performance is key. And so you can't do anything like super ridiculously crazy, because then everybody's frame rates are going to tank. So we had to be a bit more judicious about the kinds of things that we looked into in terms of solving all those problems. But I think that the solution with his shadow going across, oops, sorry, hit my mic. His shadow going across, and if you look at the floor whenever he's kind of in his phase transition, seeing the shadow kind of like start to build up in an area, and then he comes out of the ground and chomps, like all that stuff is actually really perf light, which allows the fight to be pretty easy on the computer. And it also allows us to do a lot more in terms of like environmental effects, where we have, snow falling all over the screen, kind of have like a little whiteout effect that kind of makes the atmosphere of that encounter feel a lot more tense and scary as you're going through it. So yeah, just overall, it was a pleasure to work with everybody to try and figure out, how are we going to take this being that has so much potential, and players have kind of run with their imaginations for the last 10 plus years, ever since they saw Drakkar. How do we take that and really deliver it in a way that meets their expectations?
Awesome. So Nick, how about you? Because you have been all over the place. You've been super busy.
Yeah, I really have. I think I'd say the highlights for me are just kind of having gotten to experiment a lot, and kind of being able to work with all the different teams and kind of see how everybody functions, for lack of a better word, and seeing like everybody at at ArenaNet, I was gonna say at Guild Wars, at ArenaNet is extremely talented. But like each team, while solid, like has its own unique flair and flavor. So being able to kind of hop between teams and do the things that I wanted to do creatively, while also being able to work in tandem with all these extremely amazing and creative people, definitely was fantastic. But I think the biggest thing for me was like all of the discovering all of like the technical hurdles and like how to overcome them, kind of like what Cameron was talking about earlier with Drakkar. You know, big or small, there's always going to be technical hurdles with all of your content. And being able to overcome those things is pretty fantastic.
Speaking of working from home, didn't you help some with getting our tools to work from home?
Sort of. It depends on which tools you're
Sort of?
talking about. I work on some accessibility stuff, and so I had to help get those tools kind of up and running again. And also I do some. So I am the lead of one of our internal like studio culture teams that kind of helps. Like our job is to kind of help gauge the pulse of the studio and things like that. So I worked to kind of get the framework for that stuff set up along with my team, and boy does COVID make things more difficult, but we pulled through it, and I was extremely proud of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the accessibility stuff that you've worked on? Because we've got a few of those things from live in the past year, haven't we?
Yeah, so there's some like photosensitivity stuff that we've been working on for a while, and that we've been able to kind of get into our pipeline to kind of help stave off the problem that we've ran into in the past, where it's like our game is very effects heavy, and like depending on the settings, things can actually change in a way that we hadn't really ever imagined. So with these tools, it's allowed us to kind of help prevent any sort of like problems that could occur for people who have like photosensitive epilepsy or things like that. Along with that, we've done some work in trying to help make sure that people that are like colorblind or like have cognitive disabilities have a better time and experience in our game and the content that we're shipping. So like there's one minor one that I can point to that happened recently, which is just a really simple switch of like the malnourished buff from just being a color change to being both a color change and also having different iconography to kind of help distinguish for those who are both colorblind and have cognitive disabilities, things like that.
Yeah. And it sounds like what you said, it was just a little small thing, but it makes a big difference to a lot of people. So I do want to take a second to thank you for working on that stuff and pushing on that.
Yeah,
because it has helped.
At the end of the day, it's not just me, right? It's a bunch of people, and I think we also can thank leadership for being like, heck yeah, let's do it, and also like all of the fans who bring up stuff, because what I've learned is that when it comes to accessibility, like no one person has all the knowledge. So like seeing forum posts where people talk about these things and bring up their concerns or the problems that they're running into definitely helps us to be able to take a look at it, evaluate how we can solve these problems, and then action on those items. So thank you to the community, because they're the real heroes in this situation.
Thank you. Well, community and you and everybody who worked on it. So it is absolutely a team effort that has come through and made a difference to people. So
thank you.
Well, let's talk in our remaining time here. Let's talk some about working from home. Again, I know we did a stream on it, but if we're looking back at the past year, I feel like we kind of have to acknowledge it. Annie, you mentioned that working from home was a lot better than it was in 2011, which yeah, it would be. What were some of the biggest differences that made it easier for you?
Oh man. Well, stuff like like teams just, if they existed, I was not aware of it. It was not a thing that was accessible. I mean, stuff just wasn't as fast. You didn't have the same sort of processing power. If I tried to work in something like GW test, it was this hitchy nightmare where it was like broad strokes is even an exaggeration about what you could do in that. It was pretty much if you weren't working in text or in very simple scripting where it was your best guess kind of thing, you just sort of had to flag things as, I'm gonna have to fix this when I get back in the office. It was always a sort of thing where it was like, this is a Band-Aid, this is a stopgap, this is something where you just hope to get something done, so it's not just like a total waste of time sitting and looking out the window like, boy, there's a lot of snow out there, this is not possible. And talking with other people, like having a like even just like a chat over voice was weird and would have been different, let alone like video. It just, God, this makes me sound old, but yeah, I mean, I think that stuff with working from home has advanced so much just in like the last 5 years. Like stuff like Teams and Slack have become mainstream. People are using stuff like Discord. Like there's become a lot of options now, just in terms
just for
of
communication.
in terms of like non-internal, like ArenaNet did not have to develop the software to do working from home. It existed. Pipelines for doing remote work got smoother. Things just improved across the board. Thankfully, without as much effort specifically from one place needing to be as much a part of it. And I think people got more used to the sort of like communicating online, being able to communicate through chat, through video stuff, through knowing what was beneficial to say like in a quick message versus just, I mean, the convenience of turning around and like yelling over your shoulder and the camaraderie of having everybody in the office. Like you can't replace that. You can kind of have a little bit of a facsimile in like, group chats and stuff like that. But I think the intervening time was learning what working from home could do well and just trying to lean in that kind of direction. But oh my God, the connections in 2011 were not great. That's a big one too.
This is true. You mentioned missing the camaraderie, and I've been out of town. I just got home late last night, and we were coming home from the airport, and we had to swing by the Factoria area for something. And I was like, can we just divert a little bit? I just want to drive past the office and see it. And yeah, I miss the office. So yeah, I did that. That's probably sad, but I did drive by, and I like, hi work, I miss you. Yeah. So, Nick, you've talked a lot on Guild Chat about working from home. How's it going? How are you doing?
Sorry. You
No,
you
you're
were like
not
talking
wrong.
about the office, and I was like, oh, she's not wrong.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I miss people. I miss working
Yeah.
with people physically at the office. I mean, like Teams is great. Like Annie was saying, our tools are great in being able to communicate and continue our workflows. But there are a lot of things that have been sacrificed, unfortunately. Like once again, what Annie said, yelling over your shoulder, telling everybody like, like I miss the points where people were like you'd hear an audible gasp. And everybody would just turn around and be like, what? And then they're like, look! And you would see their screen and everybody would crowd around. And then it would be like this crazy thing. Or like people would notice like something's going on here. Cause like some like a programmer would be sitting next to a designer. Like Joel would be sitting next to me. And then they're like, oh, that's what's going on here, right? Like, why are these two sitting next to each other?
Good.
And then like, that's how the Metazuka came to be, right? Like we were just sitting there and we were like, how can we make go up? Boom. And I just like I miss that level of camaraderie, and also food trucks. I miss food trucks so much. Like
Aw.
first world problems. but I miss food trucks. Cooking for myself every single day is valuable in my skill set, but not as valuable when it comes to diverse palates.
But it's not a food truck.
Exactly.
Yeah, I have a couple, and food truck owners, just because pandemic, are starting to adapt a little bit. So there are food trucks like up here in suburbia where I live, because they're like, well, I can't go to office parks anymore. So like they're
Like an
starting to
ice cream
branch out.
truck?
Maybe there will be, huh?
Like an ice cream
Do
truck.
I?
Like they're just
Yeah.
they're
Yes, like an ice
driving
cream truck.
through.
No, there is one that does coffee and pastries, and I haven't patronized it yet, but there's one that does coffee and pastries in my area that drives around like an ice cream truck.
Does it play a little song?
I
I'm
don't
so eager
know.
for that
I
for
haven't.
no reason.
I
It
will.
has to, right? Like how else are you getting
We
people's
find our fun.
attention?
Facebook,
You just like
I
scream
don't
into the
know. They
megaphone
tell
like
people.
food.
I think
Food here, get your food.
I think there are food trucks in your future, is what I'm saying.
I hope so.
Yeah, I have my favorites. I have like the smoothie truck, and I haven't been there since I was at the office. So, Cameron, how about you? Do you miss food trucks too?
I'm thinking of them right now.
Okay, come back
Yes.
to us.
Oh man. Yeah, I definitely miss food trucks. They're the best. But as Nick was saying, I think the people and the environment are probably the things that I miss the most, for sure.
Yeah.
There were definitely a lot of different problems to solve with coming in and working from home. There was a ramp up time where, early on there was some tech hurdles that we needed to get past, and we did a really great job of getting past those and getting connection for everybody across the studio, which was great. Shout out to the IT team. They pulled a Herculean effort in order to get everything there. So good job on that. But there are also, some case-by-case just challenges to overcome, like getting a proper workspace set up. I have a desk here at home that I had customized specifically for like my own use, with like a VR headset and all of these other things that are purely recreational. Oh, nice. And it's super fun, except for it was not built for productivity. So I definitely needed to try and figure out how to get around that. And beyond just the workspace, I live in a house with a bunch of other people, and my desk was in the common area. So one of the things that I did not expect at all was a bunch of people in the kitchen at all hours of the day, with pots clanging and like the sizzle of things being burned on the pan, and just cabinets opening and shutting all over the place. And I actually ended up getting noise canceling headphones, and it still was just like driving me crazy. So I tried to move my desk into my room, and that was great for a little bit. And then I realized that I am absolutely an introverted extrovert, and I need people. I need that human interaction, and it was just going nuts being in my room, which is already a super small room. So having another big desk area in there was really hard to fit in. But I had this idea about a month ago now of, okay, well, it's very clear that I don't know how long we're going to be in this situation sitting at home. So I actually went and I got one of the desks, the standing desks that we have at the office, and I recreated my office workspace at home. And it has done wonders because it tricks my brain into thinking that I'm back there. And the only difference is just not being able to see all you beautiful people. I can't wait.
That's hard. I was talking to somebody. I'm afraid I'm gonna make Nick sad now, but I'm gonna tell this anyway. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, yeah, a while back we had this meeting at work, and Nick wanted to talk to me about something right afterwards, and we ended up just like grabbing a side room, and we ended up talking for like an hour and a half. And then I was like, oh, I can't do that. Do you remember that? And I was just like, oh, we can't do that anymore. It was super productive. Yeah, it wasn't just like, let's not work.
Productive.
But it was like we got so much figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't that's hard because we don't have that
It is
now.
very hard to do now.
Um,
Yeah,
hopefully
and you. Oh,
hopefully
sorry. I just.
side room conversations and food trucks will be in our future soon, hopefully.
Mhm.
A bigger concern with living with people, and Cameron, I don't want to get you too much in the weeds, but I know what you're working on. Are these people that you live with people that can see that stuff? Or do you just
I
like work with a
specifically
blanket over your head and your monitor?
I specifically have all of my
Friend DA?
monitors faced away from everything, and
Okay.
this standing desk right here, I make sure that anytime that one of my roommates is over there, I'm like, I will not do anything.
Leave.
I'm not going to work on anything. Please go. But
Yeah, you were
actually,
talking
some
about-
of them that I live with have NDAs because they previously worked at the studio as well. So that's good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you said that, and I was just like, oh, that's an interesting conundrum. How do you solve that?
It's definitely difficult because every now and then they'll just be like, "What you working on?" And I'm like, "I can't tell you."
Working? I'm not working. This is and just shut off your machine. But yeah, I think talking to people, we've all basically looted our work desks and brought everything home, as much as is humanly possible. And I know a couple people have brought the standing desks home. I was talking with one of the people on our localization team, just asking, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? And they were like, well, my back really hurts because I have to sit on my couch. My apartment is small. I sit on my couch and I lean forward and I have my laptop on my coffee table. And I was like, let me introduce you to things that can make that better. Because I don't want you to be in pain for the foreseeable future because we're all working from home. So, well, thank you guys very much for talking with us about the past year. We have a couple more devs to talk with about things that we're working on now. So why don't you guys stick around? I will let the three of you get back to work. Everybody go outside for just a little bit. It's nice out. Stretch. Don't just stay in your room all day. All right, thanks guys. Stick around and we will be right back.
Your wounds have mended. What are you waiting for? The scrying pool's ready.
You're in the Steel Warband now. I expect nothing short of absolute perfection.
Aren't you the sorriest bunch of recruits I've ever laid eyes on?
All targets eliminated.
Magic or not, a tank blast to the face works just the same!
Happiness is a smooth tonic.
All right, welcome back. I love Joel's image. So, Joel and Connor, thank you for coming to talk with us about the past year and something that you guys have been working on for a while and is on live today. You guys worked on the underwater skimmer, which
That's correct.
super exciting that it shipped. I do want to touch on a thing really quick because one of those lovely bugs that doesn't show up in testing and only shows up on live has manifested. So, Connor, do you want to talk about that for just a second?
I mean, just that's it. We're looking into it. I see people talking about it on chat. Like, we're going to looking into it and going to solve it as soon as we can. But
Yeah. So, love when they don't show up in testing. It's the best.
when it's on dev and everything's working fine, and then it goes to live and it's like, well, here's this weird thing that's happening. It's like, all right, time to get creative and problem solving.
I mean, I think just in general, there's a million things that can go wrong. You can only test about 1,000, so we do our best.
This is true. So, well, okay. So with that out of the way, we know we're on it, and with that out of the way, why don't I have you guys? Oh, go ahead, Connor.
I just want to say I know we're obviously on the stream. QA is doing a bunch of investigation right now, so it's not like we're not working on it because we're here. That's all.
That's actually an extremely good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Connor, why don't you talk first about what you do at ArenaNet, and then Joel, you go.
Sure. So I'm a senior game designer here. Over the last year, I worked on the Metal Legion concert and a bunch of other stuff in Bound by Blood, and then I switched over about halfway through the development of Shadow in the Ice and took that team over. So I had my first taste of being a team lead on that, and then since then I have been working on the mysterious third expansion, which it's a thing. Yes.
It is a thing that we are working on.
Yes, it is the thing that we are working on.
Yeah.
But yeah,
How about you, Joel?
and
Go ahead.
also wait, there's one more thing. I also helped out with voicing the Visions of the Past, which involves and I over the last year I've been writing a lot of Snargle Goldclaw novels, so maybe I will tell the entire Snargle Goldclaw story at some point. So yeah.
Okay, I love it. How about you, Joel?
So I'm a gameplay programmer. Let me move my images on the screen. There we go. Wow, this like. All right, so I'm a game. Don't mind me. I'm a gameplay programmer. I mainly break stuff. It's my job. I do a lot of behind the scenes things. I implement stuff that people then use, like Living World will use, or the past, 7 months. It's basically since the start of the year, I've been working on secret expansion things, which involves a lot of secret things.
That's
and
okay.
sometimes there's break stuff, and that's fine. That's what we do. But it's just lots of interesting tech. If we have some time here, I don't know how long we've got, but we can talk about some of them. Might be interesting for people who are like, what do you do? Like it's a hard thing to just summarize. It's like I make things. It's fine.
You
like
break things and you make things.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk to you first, Connor. What were some of your highlights? What were some of your favorite things over the last year?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a very char season, and so I think a lot of the really fun things that we have done are like diving into all the complications and different factions in char culture, and different cultural artifacts and people who diverge from the norm or conform in various ways, and that have obviously manifested in two very different ways. The most char of char, the Metal Legion, who are as hardcore as you can possibly be, and the development of Snargle Goldclaw into an actual speaking character who is definitely more atypical for the char as we tend to think of them. So like
true.
the fact that I got to explore both sides of this both extremes of this group that we're exploring this season was really a lot of fun, and I had a lot of fun with both of them. And also, so yeah, those are probably my main highlights. Obviously, like actually shipping the skimmer going underwater is really nice. We've been mulling over and how that, and yeah. So and the little side story I got to weave around that. So there's been a lot of different things. And obviously, the other thing is also really nice. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So you can't see it, but I am wearing my Metal Legion shirt today. So
Very
thank you
nice.
for creating that. Yeah. How about you, Joel? What were some of your favorite things to work on? Because you did a lot of things that sound like little features here and there, but make a huge difference in the game.
So again, this is hard. Like, well, I do a lot of things that most people don't. Like, they're not big stand-up features. Like, I worked on this episode. Like, no, but so like a recent example. So in episode 4, there's this great big tank boss, right? And what's interesting about that is it's actually here. This is what the space is for. So it's a prop boss. So what we refer to internally as a prop boss, which is it's what we call a gadget, but it's this model sort of built. Let's build a tank. So it looks sort of like it actually got treads, doesn't it? So it looks kind of like that. But all it actually is it's a gadget around yay point, and then it has these little attached things called attack targets. Those are the things you actually shoot at. And so what Nick wanted was like, hey, I want to take this boss and have it move around the room, right? And the problem is, what would happen? The boss would move here. So it would move, but the attack targets would stay.
I love this so much.
Yeah.
These
so
are
the
my
gadget
favorite.
point would move. Yeah, but the attack target would stay where we left it. And so when a player would attack it, and they go, pew, let me use it again. So they think they're shooting over here, because on the client it'd say, oh yeah, the thing's over here. But on the server, it's actually over here. So the actual missiles would go over here, and it would look really strange and terrible. And so like one of the things we did is that, okay, well let's add a thing that forcibly attaches all attack targets to prop bosses. So now, whenever you create a prop boss, it says, okay, well, we always have this relation between our gadget point and the attack target since they move around. It's very similar to what I did with mounts like way back. So the initial version of most of our mounts was as separate things connected together. And they still look like that, but under the hood, they're mostly not. But I was able to resurface a lot of that stuff that I wrote for way back and use it here as like here's the mechanism for attaching things and keeping their relation. Like it's always this relation no matter how it rotates. So that's an example of like, well, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's the sort of stuff I do.
That's why we give you MS Paint.
Yes, it's a fine program. It works great. But there's like we shipped like another interesting one. I don't know how deep I want to go here, but because I don't know how much time we have, I could do this for a long time.
Which one is it?
I was going to talk about the animation locking, like rotation locking. So starting with the first strike mission. So this kind of bleeds back into last year, but it didn't ship until this span between anniversaries. So there's this. Let me look at. So there's this great big golem boss, right? And I'll do a top down, so he looks like actually, and he's facing that way, and he's got these arms, right? And so Brian Walter, the animator working on it at the time, was like, hey, what I want to do is I want to have an animation where he swings over his back, like so, rah, and then ends up facing this way, which players who have played and he strikes the big golem boss probably remember they've seen that before. And so the problem is running into is like, how do we get the creature to actually turn around? So there's a like visible portion of the animation, but the actual creature itself has a facing. So it's facing this way, and at the end he's facing this way. And so the problem is, with the tools that existed at the time, if the animation said, hey, I need you to turn around here, what would actually happen is for a couple frames, he would then be like flipped.
Okay.
And so it was very hard to impossible to get the timing right to flip the creature around and then have the animation like counter flip so that it all still looked smooth. Because the problem is you couldn't rely on when the server would send the, hey, I need you to update your facing creature. And having that line up with when the animation on the client side said, and now like, here's what frame you're drawing. Not sure how well, if that makes any sense.
It actually does. And this is one of those things that doesn't sound, I don't know. I know you're not sure if it sounds exciting, but it is interesting and adds a lot to the game.
So anyway, so what I added was the ability to say, you know what, we will, when the animation starts, we will say, animation, you now believe that the character's facing is always this way. So the animation now believes character's facing is this way. And so what we'll do is then he goes over his back, and he goes, bah, hits the ground. And then I guess we'll go over here. And so then he starts to turn around. And it's not the most proportional thing, but that's okay. And now he's facing this way. And so for the duration of this animation, he believes he's facing this way. So the animator is the one who's drawing all of the rotation. It's all in animation. But what happens secretly is the character at some point during the animation flips. So it's not facing this way, actually. The animation just doesn't care about it until it's done. So at the very end, the animation says, oh, I'm done. Now I'm facing the actual character direction. So what it does is it lets the animators do a very smooth, like any kind of smooth turning animation that blends into like, and now it's actually facing this way. Hard to explain. Just starting to use it more. It's just kind of this is neat.
I mean, all of these things that Joel does are like the secrets that allow us to do a lot of. Everyone is like an insane amount of new tools in the toolbox, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and they make such a difference for content going forward, and it's what allows us to make a bunch of new types of things. Like as Kirk said earlier, the target practice event. Yeah, like that's the whole thing that we were only able to do because Joel was around to help us. With,
oh yeah, gosh, what even broke with that? Like there's something I don't remember what was broken with it. Oh no, it was okay, yeah, I remember that one. So like I said, I can do this all day. So that one's actually pretty funny.
That one a little bit.
Did he? Okay. Like the basic problem is that so you have a player standing on a platform and they're like doo-doo-doo. Player with the gun, he's got a gun. It's a gun. And so what happened is normally in our game to save server resources, if someone sits still for more than a second, we shut what we call their collider, but it's basically their havoc object, their physics object. We shut it off. So okay, well you're not moving. And then if anything comes up and says, hey, we need you to start moving again, we wake it up again. So there's this. You can see that color. There's this like, it's more like this shape that sort of represents the player. And so what happened is the platform would move over here, and my art skills are lacking. The player would go like, oh, I've moved. I want to shoot now. But because they didn't move relative to the thing they were standing on, their collider was still back here. And so the bullets would actually shoot from over here, even though they thought they were here. So they'd shoot from here, even though visually they thought they were here. And so when you're trying to aim at a specific target, that makes it very challenging. So it was something like that. I don't know if that was actually what it was.
I mean, I don't
think it was actually
basically like,
but it was. It's the gist of that. It may not have been the collider, but it was something where something had stale data. Anyway.
The things you solved for this event turned moving platforms from a thing that we really should not touch because they're scary and dangerous to a thing that is still a little scary, but seems to work pretty well. So that's a huge,
but it happened and it worked.
Huge new tool in our toolbox. Yeah. So, and that event's a lot of fun. So I think that one's really cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel.
Yeah. I mean, like even recently we had the one moving platform thing that you were asking me about. I don't know if that fix will actually go on. Anyway, that's getting deep in the weeds. We'll bring that up if it happens.
Turns out some moving platform things lead to more moving platform experiments. So yes, that's all we will say.
Hey, this works. Let's keep doing it. Let's do more.
Yes.
I want to have you talk something else you worked at, roller beetle starting at full energy. Do you want to talk about
Oh
that a
yeah,
little bit?
yeah, a small change, but significant
Small
one. I
change.
think all of my people in my racing beetle guild are very happy about that. Shout out to Drift. So basically, the problem was when Beetle shipped, we played a little conservative. People who were making calls at the time were like, "Well, let's be safe, and we don't want to like suddenly magically outclass a terrible Beetle. Suddenly outclass all the other mounts by just like boom, you're on it, you go super fast. So we'll have it start at no energy, and then so basically what we want to differentiate is between a Raptor. This we do this color Raptor. So Raptors start. Well, that's a Raptor, all right. Oh my god! All right. So Raptor starts at full energy and it just like immediately you mount up and you jump, right? And so the difference is we want roller beetle to be kind of a slow build up and then you go. And that's fine in the like in theory, but in practice it's very frustrating to have to sit there waiting for however long it takes for it to try. I don't remember anymore how long, but it feels like forever. And so at some point after we've been live, I was like, to just make it start at full. And so now it starts at full. Just small, simple things, but like they count. Something that I thought we should have done from the beginning, and I was right. So yeah, sometimes I'm right,
and that's a very good Raptor.
Sure.
Sometimes you're right. You're right fairly often. It makes a difference. So keep doing that. Connor, you said that you could talk a little more about that whole story around Snargle. And
okay, yes.
And I did see some people in chat offering to help you write Snargle stories. So if you
lovely.
are at a loss for ideas,
I'm sure I could go browse the internet and I'd find many candidates for Snargle Goldclaw stories. I might have to tone them down a little bit, but I'm sure
I think
there
you're
are a lot of
overwhelmed
candidates.
just with staff.
It's true. So the origins of Snargle Goldclaw, going back years to the episode A Star to Guide Us. We were working on Kralkatorrik, returning to the story in a major way with that episode. And at one point, my lead at the time, Heather Conover, typoed Kralkatorrik as I miss Heather. She's amazing. As Kralkatorid. And
that was Heather.
That was Heather. She typoed it, and my pun-oriented brain was like, "Well, now I want to write a romance novel called The Kralkatorid Affair." And everyone's like, "Haha, that's funny." I'm like, "No, really. Like, I want to do this." So, there's a little bit of this. We've never done this before. It was obviously very hokey. There's a little bit of hemming and hawing. It was like our writer Samantha was like, I'm all on board. I wrote like romance and like Mass Effect and all these stuff, but like, I think you should just get to the top so our butts are covered. So I poked Z, and I'm like, hey, do you have any objection to me writing like a 1-page romance excerpt and putting it in the episode? And he's like, he pauses for a bit. And he goes, sure, you can do that. And so, but the whole idea was not to distract that much. We hid it somewhere that, it wasn't marked by any like, gadget, like mouse over thing. So the idea was people would find it like a month in, and they did. And they're like, what is this? So that was the first one, A Kralkatorid Affair. And then I was bitten by the terrible romance novel. So I wrote for the next episode. And Lily was my collaborator early on, and she was the writer for episode 5 as well. So I'm like, Lily, can I do another one? And she's like, yeah, like sure. So I wrote one about a Norn falling in love with the Dredge, and I think that was when they started to like the inner like species and playing with gender things started to become more prominent, like come into a thing in his novel. The idea was, and that was when I was starting to form my headcanon for Snargle, which is like, yeah, he's this char who like just believes in love, right? And so I started to have this mental model of who Snargle was. I had all this canon that didn't actually become canon, like he was he's married to a woman, a Sylvari named Orchid, and they've adopted like 3 human children. None of that's canon. but it was fun to think about. It was in canon at the time.
You just made it canon, man.
No, I didn't. That's not because we've shown stuff. I mean, anyway, but so the biggest hiccup and then I decided I was going to write one for every episode. That was just what I decided. And the biggest hiccup they hit was episode 6, which was a quote very serious episode where the world's about to end and Kralkatorrik's like landing on and there was some that was the one where we're like there's the biggest clash between tone and having this romance novel to find somewhere in the world. There's one that comes up later, which I'll talk about. But the conclusion that eventually the writer for that episode, Neil, comes back to me. He's like, okay, I have an idea. What if instead of putting it out in the open world, we hide it in the final instance when you're on the airship coming back? And it's like, you're having this moment of like looking to the future, and you write one that's thematically about looking to the future, which is what led to Misconnections, which is about someone who died returning from the mists to reunite with their love and like look to the, and it ends with like, and for the first time they felt hope, like something super hokey like that. We then had to go back when we did the collection and put that book in the open world, but whatever, it wasn't in there during launch. And yeah, so then Bound by Blood, which was my favorite, the Ebonlock Covenant, that's my favorite of them all. Just it has my favorite line that I wrote, which is like, does no one appreciate the gentle curve of a horn anymore? Like, which just in the
Oh my god.
if you took Bangar, who is not very open-minded, and had him write about like moping about some char clearly having affection for someone who was not a char, that would be something that romance novel Bangar would say. So I liked that. So then we get to Shadow in the Ice. Not Shadow in the Ice. Whisper in the Dark, which was a very creepy episode. And
Yes.
Samantha, I'm working with Samantha again. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to write one about Savanir. Savanir trying to be, like, discovering that maybe, being a sex is not the way to go. And Samantha's like, okay, that's great. But this episode is really creepy, like even more than episode 6. Like it's just going to, and Samantha in between things, it started to snowball. So like there's this thing in Guild Wars 2, which is lovely, where if one person gets like excited about things, other people will start to like build on it, right, in really meaningful, like collaborative ways. So example, Samantha wrote that great summary of a Snargle Goldclaw novel that we later put in game for the like little magazine that we put out in the lead up. She wrote which Captain Gritlock and or Gritlock and Captain Rogan, which became a reoccurring theme of shipping characters in stories. But and then also there was a line for like Dragon Bash where they're like, "Do you think the commander is a Snargle Goldclaw fan?" So he was starting to like become less than an Easter egg. Become an Easter egg that was being hidden in every episode. But Samantha's like, okay, look, I've again, it comes to me as like, I know how we'll split the difference. We're going to start with the Snargle Goldclaw novel, and at the end, it's going to deteriorate into like weird Jormag, like horror stuff, right? So you're going to be reading it, and you'll be like, ha ha ha, oh, and I'm like, that sounds great, but I'm worried people will think Snargle Goldclaw is dead. And she's like, oh yeah, probably, but we can always just say he's not dead later. And I'm like, okay, let's do we can do it. And of course, I remember checking the wiki, and it was like, based on the title, and the content, this is probably the last Snargle Goldclaw novel. So I'm like, okay, that cannot happen. So I talked to Joel and Quan, and this was for Visions of the Past. And Joel, who is definitely enjoys the goofier side of Tyria, and Quan really attached the idea of having this character actually show up in person and spin this whole story about him like having the follow up to him having been lost in the whispers and all these Quan. And so I wrote a bunch of new ones for that one. Quan wrote some amazing dialogue for Snargle, which honestly exceeded my wildest dreams for how that character would feel. And the voice actor Fred was amazing. And the thing that's hilarious about it is obviously I'm deliberately writing purple prose when I'm writing those, but there's all those things about Snargle's books are so like obnoxious. And I'm like, yeah, like that's my first writing
Yeah, they
review
are.
is from these in-game characters. I was a creative writing major back in the day, so I'm really putting that degree to good use. And yeah, and now it's the thing where Snargle is a thing that is everyone's like contributing to, right? And like it's just a great example of that snowball effect of like how passion can be contagious, and as Snargle would say, um, and people can like add more and more to a thing to make and have something be a fully realized like element of the world. Like, what are the implications of this romance author existing? Right? Erin wrote one for the last episode, more than she bargained for. And yeah, we'll see. Snargle Goldclaw is definitely close to a lot of people's hearts at this point.
I love how much of a thing this has turned into, and I was, like, laughing the whole time you were talking about Samantha participating because I can hear her in my head. I can hear her
Yes.
reaction to this stuff in
Oh,
my head.
she had so much fun writing the
Yep.
Captain Gritlock and sorry, Gritlock and Rogan back in the pair. And that's the thing. I think there's a lot of like, you know, people really enjoy when you're building a massive world. There's so much
Mhm.
room to have interesting little side details like that. And those are really fun to flesh out and contribute to.
Yeah.
And it's one of I think where like it's one of the things where I think the Guild Wars 2 team like really excels, and I think has only gotten better over time. Is like making a world that feels diverse within itself, and like
Mhm.
that there's a bunch of yes, there's a dominant culture for each group, but within that culture there's multitudes as well, and
Mhm.
yeah, and it's just exciting to work on stuff like that.
Yeah. So, honestly, I would be happy, talking about Snargle because he's so much fun, and how
Oh,
he came to be was so much fun.
I can briefly touch on one last thing. Which was his
Sure.
composite creation. Um, he was originally in. I knew we had to go with like traditional royal colors. I mean,
Uh-huh.
and my headcanon, one part of my headcanon that is that like he's kind of grizzled, and but like then he set that behind him to pursue like the art of love. And so like anything that was his face I went for like looking kind of like worn down, right? Like you can if you look at his horns, they're broken and stuff like that. But his clothes are all as nice as possible, and I had to go with lavender as his dominant color, probably because I just finished watching Jane the Virgin, and Rogelio de la Vega is a fabulous man, and Snargle Goldclaw definitely has some influence from that. So yeah.
I need to watch that. I've heard it's good. Um, but that is a completely other sidetrack. One more
Yes.
thing that I want to touch on is the Bengar and Ryland instance in Visions of the Past, and
Yeah.
Almora punching Al and I'm gonna quote you, Almora punching the dude off the ledge.
Yeah, that was like a last minute. Like we're working on this instance, and we just have this thing of like, Amora's entering, and like someone's like, I just wish. I think Frosty even said like, I want her to have more of an entrance. Like what if she could
Yeah.
just kill the dude up there? And I'm like, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm gonna amp it up, and I literally had her like, oh yeah, like tiger uppercut her off the Savanier off the ledge, and we had a line. We had originally had two versions of the insult that she throws at Bangar when they're arguing, and when we had picked one of them, so I'm like, I'm going to use the other one, which was piss off, and so she just yells this as the Savanier goes flying, and it was easy to set up, but it made a much better intro for her, and it was one of those things that was just fun to do and fun to add details to her. Like Almora is one of my favorite characters in Guild Wars 2. That's why when we did Metal Legion, like I'd love to have a song about Amora. And
Aw.
it had been a little tough when we always knew that we were doing we were going to do this follow-up where we go into how she actually dies. But it was a little tough when Shadow in the Ice came out. Not Shadow in the Ice. Whispers in the Dark, and people thought like that was that was all we were going to say about how she died. So it was nice to participate in that more more complete send off, complete with an orchestral version of Ballad of Soulkeeper for when you're fighting her, and just give her let her go out with the bang that she deserves,
Sure.
and punch people off the ledge in the process.
Absolutely. All right, so why don't we talk about what we're working on now, which is the hummingbird skimmer the underwater skimmer. Okay, I have to
Also a hummingbird, but
I have
yeah.
to I have to
That's for her.
pause because there's two things. The hummingbird skimmer is the one that I use, and there's also a hummingbird feeder to my left, and there's one here right now. So, yeah, hummingbird just happened. The underwater skimmer
Yes.
is the thing that you guys have been working on, and I want to talk a little bit about how you made that a reality. And real quick, for those of you who joined after Connor and Joel did, we do know there's a bug with that right now, and we are working on it. So, got that out of the way.
Yes.
So how did this when did we first have the idea? Who decided to bring it to live?
Joel.
Connor.
No, Joel.
Push buttons.
Jo-
Sorry,
it's-
push
it's
buttons.
Joel.
Push the buttons wildly.
Okay.
Yeah. So
The panic.
So it actually wasn't the original idea from the way back. Wasn't that long after Path of Fire shipped. My lovely. That's how you blurred wings. You can tell because they're you can't see them. Anyway.
Aw, very cute.
So like the first prototype I made, because so backing up a little more, the idea of taking a something underwater has been around since like mounts were first conceived. And we're like, well, we have this thing that drives on, like, that flies over the water. Let me prototype it going under just to try it. That was back in 2018. It's like 50 years ago, probably. I don't know. It's hard to
just about.
What is time? And the version of it at the time, like, it's time for some art. I do like this art, but it's here. I'll keep the skimmer part. There we go.
Thanks.
So what's interesting, there's actually a little history. Like, we could just kind of like sort of ad hoc this. So at the time, when I first prototyped it, the way it worked is here's water here. It had three states. It had the normal hovering state. Had a surface driving state. That's why I don't know why I did that. Where you could like putz around on the surface, and then if you wanted, you could dive underwater. So like when I get normal character is swimming on the surface, you can like look down and then you dive, right? And so it's like, well, let me replicate that with the skimmer. And so it needed some mechanism for getting to the surface, and then from there it could move around. So this the original version of it had a cut hover is what I call it. Like it just basically shut the hover off, and that's what the button did. And then that would drop you on the surface, and you'd hit here. And so it lived in this state for a while. And more recently, there was actual interest in shipping it. It was like, oh, great. And so Art looked at it and was like, So here's the problem. When you crash into the water surface, you would expect like splash, right? It was, and you have this like skimmer hitting the water, like, yay, what belly flop. That's a skimmer. It basically looks like a skimmer, except not at all. And so you have the splash when you hit the water, and then as you drive around, you'd leave a pretty substantial wake behind you, like basically a boat driving around, right? And Art was like, well, that's cool, but we don't want to do that. That seems hard. And like Art's permanently busy. It's kind of one of the things. I think it's probably true at every game company ever, is that Art is permanently busy. And so we're like, okay, well, there's that problem. There's a second problem, which is, well, okay, I'll get there. I'm making this up as I go here. And so the compromise solution is like, all right, well, since we're actually trying to ship this thing, let's reach compromise. And so what it ended up happening is the way it works on live right now, which is you fly over the surface and then you hit, you're like, I want to go down, and it drops you all the way under. And so the amount of time you're interacting with the surface is very minimal. There's no driving on the surface or anything. So that means all we need is a single splash right when you cross. Or when you leave, there's a second one. You come out again. There's a second splash. And so you don't need any kind of surface wakes. You don't need any kind of whatever. Just like, cool. Problem solved. There's a second issue, which I also had to deal with, which is they're like, oh, cool. Well, that's good. You can also drive right here, though. You can drive really close to the surface, in which case you have your skimmer. Make some space. Also, I sound completely alien in my head right now. I have headphones over one of my ears because like I don't have sound feeding back through them, so I'm only like half hearing myself.
You sound fun.
I sound alien to me. Anyway, I just have to trust that my words make sense. Okay, so you have Skimmer here. I don't know. There's a head over here. He's got like a little mandible thingies up front. But the player could be like, hey, my head's sticking up out of the water. Wee. And well, that'd be fun. Or it's like, well, that's also good. That should generate a wake when your head's sticking out of the water, right? And we don't want to do that either because we don't have time. Probably like honestly make like a like kind of water go up like that. Anyway, so that is why there is a minimum depth that you must be under. Also, when you dive, it takes you down to a certain level, and you cannot go above that unless you want to completely surface. So that's where that comes from. So they're like, why? Practical reasons of art said so. But anyway, so that is not at all what you originally asked, which was the development, the like, how did this come about history? But that is the how we got to where it is history. Some of it.
But the question is also how do you make it go? So I will take it.
Yeah, I mean, so the like, how did it come? There's a long and very drawn out series of. Do you want to ship this? Well, is it good enough? What else do you need to do? Should it like tie into something else that's happening? And then sometimes that takes a while. It's the reality of shipping stuff. Is sometimes it just takes a while. However, in the meantime, like in that there's also a period of let us convince other people this is a good idea, which is how Connor factors into this. It's like, hey Connor, do you think this is a good idea? It's like, heck yeah, I do.
Yeah, it did not take much convincing. Like, yeah. Again, this is another story of like something snowballing, right? Like, basically, I tested this prototype, and I was like, we need to do this. What is a little? But basically, the comment at the time was like, if we're shipping this, it's cool. We need a little something around it, right? A little story or some content to like highlight it. And I'm like, okay. And so I came up with this story of like this rogue skimmer trainer who was so determined to teach, like to figure out what else skimmers could do, which you can now see in game for the most part. You know, it was just fun to look at all these different places throughout the world and all the other people who might have interest in skimmers, or someone interested in skimmers and water might poke and have a story that naturally escalates from there. But yeah,
it works
can you
out
guys
well.
hear me? Okay, cool.
Yes, you sound fine. I know that's trying to get all of that is part of the fun part of working at home. And can you hear me? And there's lag and all of that, but I promise you're good.
Okay.
Jill, something that you mentioned about things taking a long time. While you were talking, I remembered that it's been about a year, and we were sitting in the live stream room, and you were like, "Hey, this," and you showed us the very first. This was off camera because we couldn't talk about it at the time, but you showed us the first iteration of that underwater skimmer. So yeah, it's a while.
Joel.
So I think we might have lost Joel.
No, but I don't know how
while
I'll live
we try
without
to
his
get him
doodles.
back, we will get Joel and his MS Paint doodles back.
Maybe
In the
he could write
meantime,
doodles if he can't speak. Like, help me. Like,
help. So
hey.
while Mark's trying to get him back, do you want to talk a little bit about how they get this? about how they get the Skimmer game.
Sure. I mean, I can quickly switch to just streaming for a second. I'll only show the very beginning,
Sure.
but
Yeah, we can look in gameplay. Let's do that.
you are not receiving any gameplay. Okay.
Oh. If it doesn't work, you can just tell us where to go and
Yeah,
all of that good stuff.
I can just talk. I can use my words. I'm physically capable of
Use your
speaking.
words, Connor.
Yeah. So basically, pick a character that's finished Path of Fire, and then head to any major city, and you'll get a letter, which basically calls you the Skimmer camp. Like, actually, going to the map where the Skimmer camp's in also works. You talk to the Skimmer camp, and she'll tell you a story about what's going on. And basically, the general thrust is every step you get a hint as to where this character has gone to and what they're up to, and it's all about tracking them down and trying to decipher those. At this point, I think people have already figured out a bunch of it, but yeah, that's basically it. It's log in with a character that's finished Path of Fire, head to a major city or desert riverlands, and then begin your hunt.
Awesome. Can you give us a little hint, or do you want to leave it spoiler free?
I mean,
If you
there's a
think
lot of
people, if you think most people have figured stuff out.
Yes, I do know. I'm sure the information is available at this point if you need to look it up. I will say that the one that I've seen numerous people stumble on is when someone mentions a famous water djinn, there is a most famous water djinn, and that's all. That's all I will say.
Who is the most
It's not just
famous
a famous water djinn; it's the famous water djinn.
Oh man.
You
Okay, so go ahead.
And I guess I could make like a flushing sound effect if you need another hint
Oh.
for the Mystic Toilet.
I was like, which one? And I'm like mentally navigating around the map trying to remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the background, we are navigating a few technical difficulties. Do we have Joel back for sure?
Do you have me back for sure?
Yes. Yes.
All right. Oh my goodness.
Yay.
The one thing I do not like about working from home is this. Everything else, wonderful. Not having to come into the office, wonderful. Working without any pants, wonderful. But
you were so good up and you were fine.
That's the real reason you're just a doodle. Like,
you'll never know. The world may never know.
So, speaking of working from home, how has it been for you guys? And I know, Connor, you were on the show where we talked about it a while back, but what have been some of the difficulties aside from live streaming being weird and apparently it grabbing Joel's Oculus Rift microphone instead of his other one? Joel, how about you?
Honestly, so the only negative thing I will say is having to work over remote desktop is a little clunky. And sometimes you get technical stuff.
Yeah.
You got latency, you try to chat with people, and it's like, but like the way my work setup works is I just have a remote desktop window into my work machine, and do everything over that. And some things don't work great, like trying to move your mouse, like here, I can like show a demonstration. So the most common and annoying problem there is, so you have like your desktop window, and then you're playing Guild Wars 2 in there. This is a Guild Wars 2 window, and you go, I'll move the mouse. And normally, like, you hold down right mouse or whatever, and you turn your mouse, and then when you let go again, your mouse cursor stays where you left it. However, when you're working with remote desktop, that's not true. It keeps moving, leaves the window, and and so your mouse ends up somewhere you don't intend for it to. Action camera is completely broken because you're trying to use the same thing. Very frustrating. So that sucks. But coming into work basically whenever, because no one knows or cares. Fantastic. not having to like, I can, if I have a meeting, I can literally roll out of bed and be there in 5 minutes. Wonderful. It's it's mostly working out pretty well. I mean, I'm like hard introvert, so like this is all pretty good for me, and I don't mind it.
Yeah, so this is working out well for you.
Yeah, like I don't have too many complaints here.
Good.
I know that's not true for a lot of people, but it is working out for me. So
It's been a huge mixed bag for people, I'm finding. How about you, Connor? Aside from you have a
I mean,
cat
yeah,
getting up in your workspace all the time, but
yeah, I do have a cat who has decided not to appear. We was going to be, but yeah. I mean, like, I in quarantine decided to move back with my family because I am not an introvert. And I had just moved into an apartment that was solo apartment, and that turned out when no one can leave apartment, that really, it was, because the idea was like, oh, I'll live by myself and then I'll go out and see people, and then it's like, nah, that last thing was just removed from the equation. I'm not an introvert, so that's been, being home has been nice, but um there is the factor of working, like my office right now is, I am literally a stereotype who works in his parents' basement at this point in time.
oh
And
no.
sometimes like family members will like come downstairs and they'll be like, start talking to me, and I'm like, I'm in the middle of a work meeting. Like I'm an
I'm doing
adult
something.
doing professional things. Like
I
um
feel like a
but
lot of the stereotype rules are lifted because pandemic. You're allowed.
yes,
You're
it's true.
fine.
And that's one of the things about it is, everyone I have talked to is like, that's the, like, yeah, that's absolutely, like Esther was talking about being with family, like they're like, oh man,
Yeah.
either like that sounds like such a good idea, or I wish I could do that, right? Like it is, and I'll be out as soon as pandemic is over again. But yeah, it is, it's a thing, right? And
Yeah.
it's got a lot of perks. It's, I get we can have like family movie nights and things like that, kind of a nostalgic nature to it. Just waiting for my family to get sick of me. But I have it, yeah. And then other than that, like as Joel was saying, like it's mainly like work honestly goes pretty okay. Like yeah, you can start and end late. Um and basically like your hours are, and just to get things done, if there's something that you want to like pop in, like I think there was a study recently that people are working just weird hours as
Uh-huh.
during quarantine. Like we still have core hours, so people are around for that, but then it's like someone might be like, okay, I am going to do another hour from 7 to 8, right, and take a break at 4. And like that's a nice option to have, especially in design. Sometimes you just get stuck on something, and stepping away for a little bit and coming back can actually be more productive, because like, but your brain hasn't really stopped working, not 100%. It's like noodling on the problem in the background.
Right.
that is very
And
true.
and
Just
that,
supporting that statement.
yeah, yeah. And I've Joel is. I'm gonna throw you under the bus a little bit, Joel. Not too badly,
Oh
but
no.
you've definitely like I am to me. Like I'm working on this thing at some hour, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, well I did that," and I'm like, "It's what works, right?" And he's able to do it, and he gets stuff done, and it's great, and we get amazing things. And yeah, yeah. So uh, I think that's an advantage in that. Honestly, I think for many people, it is a better work structure. As long as you do have to be careful, because the counterpoint of that is you can end up working 10, 12-hour days and not realize it, right? And like, it's funny because I think a lot of people, their instinct would be like, oh man, they're going to like slack off and not work the full time. But it's actually like when you're working thing that you are passionate about, like everyone on the Guild Wars team is, the real danger is you just get sucked into the vortex and you look at the clock and it's like 8. And it's because it's kind of accidental, unenforced, like I ended up working long. But people are really good at doing that. There's been a lot of good advice about like, making sure you just leave your workspace. But yeah, I will say, like I think I've 99% of, well, people, yeah, it's just a thing. It's the thing to adjust to and be careful about.
Yeah, shipping a game entirely from home is something that we've had to do a couple times here and there. I mean, there was a year or so ago when the snowstorm shut the office down
Yeah.
and we had a
Yeah,
release.
Jormag destroyed the
Yeah.
office.
Good times. Yeah, that's happened more than once, but yeah. Done.
Yes, and we were always like, "Oh man, we pulled it off. Thank God we won't have to do that again." And hey, we're shipping all of our releases from home now. So, and I know everybody has different experiences. You guys in chat, I don't know who's working from home, who's having to go in, um, but navigating this weird situation all around has been a thing that I feel like we've gotten better at. And the fact that we've kept our content shipping cadence that we had planned has been fantastic.
The big thing for, and I think I can talk about this safely, is obviously I was working on
Let's find out.
some stuff. Yeah, some stuff for the big thing that we're doing right now. And we're making a lot of there's a lot of early pre-production decisions that have to be made, and that really emphasizes the tone questions, right? When people are making big decisions about like what are key things, I just find it so important to have meetings, right, and talk to people like over voice, so you can like get a sense of how they're feeling and not interpreting text. And I think that's been a huge advantage to us, was just doing voice chat we could.
Yeah, that makes a difference. So,
Yeah.
all right, we're going to wrap up on this segment unless you guys have something else that you want to mention.
I mean, again,
Going
I
once?
can talk about stuff I've worked on for 10 hours. But,
Yeah. Well, we could
And I
we could
kind of
ramble
love
for
it.
a while.
yeah. I mean, I did draw you.
And I
Since I
actually
don't
kind
have
of love
the
it.
camera, there's my room. You can see it.
Oh my gosh,
If anyone is feeling
but you see how
if anyone,
pixelated we are, so
yeah, I mean, if anyone's missing out on like, well, I mean, for the like people actually watching the stream, it's in better
yeah.
quality. Yeah. It's actually a little off
Awesome.
center. Yeah.
You're missing
That's
a fourth
okay.
wall.
He's breaking it
broken
to
the
talk
fourth
to us.
wall,
It's
Connor.
fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. LOL. We're very
So
funny.
we do have time. Joel, we do have time for you to ramble a little bit more if you would like to talk about something else that you've worked on this year.
I mean, it's not really. It's kind of tangentially related. So, like, I was like, so I sent you that cheat sheet some time ago. Like, here's some things I worked on. I was just like going through my check-in history. Like, what have I done?
Yeah.
I think one of the actual big ones that happened this year was mountain ability buttons. So those are the yeah, like this. It seems like a small thing, but I feel like it's actually a pretty big deal for new players coming in. So, like on your skill bar, right, you have. There's I think you've got like, oh wow, it's not straight. Oh, hit Control Z too many times. So you have like your skills over, skills over here, and you got your health there. I'll just whatever, give up. And so normally on the mount you have like an engage skill over here, and you got a couple skills over here, nothing in here. And so we're like, well, we have this space. It would be kind of nice if we said. What can this thing do? So like on the Raptor, we said, well, it's got this like leap ability. And so, or like on the Springer, it's got the super jump ability. And so the idea is any new player coming in with CI, I can immediately know what this thing does. I don't have to go look up. I don't have to just assume, well, there are mount ability buttons in my keybinds. So this is how I know how to do the thing. It's like, no, it's on the skill bar. This is what's interesting. There's some history there of we went back and forth on this before Path of Fire ship. Decided probably wasn't necessary, and then changed our minds shortly afterwards. And then it just took a while to actually implement. What's interesting about them though is they're not actual skills in like. So to a player, they look the same, they function the same, but they're not actually the same thing. Like under the hood, they're completely different. They just visually look identical. They're imposters. And so like they simulate like they're being activated like a normal skill, and they like have like pressed and unpressed states, and they've got all kinds of, but they're all fake. And so.
But it gets the job done.
Kind of thing that gets the job done. It's kind of hard to like explain all the ways that they are different. But it's just it's a nice little quality of life thing, and sometimes those make a difference. Again, especially it's for our newer
makes a difference.
Yeah, especially for newer players coming in. They're like, oh, okay, now now we don't need this like external guide. It's just in the game. They can figure it out. Yep. One more
Okay.
thing. It's like just
Go
one more
for it.
thing. No, it's like that was just one more thing. Unless you want me to keep
I
going.
like the one more thing. Nope, I do have one thing that actually was literally just handed to me a few minutes ago that I went to show off before Connor comes back. So this is going to be fun with a headset
Before
on.
I come
Let's
back.
see how to do this.
Harsh, man.
Oh,
Here.
before someone else comes back. Before Cameron comes back.
Oh, I see. We're doing things behind camera.
Yeah.
This is what 4 Fans by Fans has now. And if you want to take
Can't beat
your
him, join him.
Jormag mask, if you can't beat him, join him. So
It's the
I can't
Jormag.
leave that on inside. Jormag mask. 4 Fans by Fans has these now. They did a limited run, and I think they made an extra one. So I did not take one away from people, but these are up now if you want to represent Jormag. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you guys very, very much. I appreciate that. Your time. We're going to bring
thanks for having
Cameron
us.
back in a few minutes to talk about something that he's working on. So you guys stick around. I'll let you two get back to work. And thank you very much for talking about the past year and the underwater skimmer with us.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yep.
All right. Stick around, guys.
Bye
We'll be right
now.
back. All right, welcome back. Thank you guys for sticking around with us and talking about the past year of Guild Wars 2 on our anniversary stream. We brought Cameron back because we mentioned earlier that he's working on something. We have a new Fractal coming that we have told you guys about. And I am excited to tell you guys it's coming September 15th. And Connor is here, or Cameron is here. I need no more people whose names start with a C. Also, it's been a while and now I'm sleepy. Cameron is back to tell us some about this Fractal. So Cameron, what do you want to let us know? Give us details.
Yeah, all right. So earlier this year, we talked about how we were working on a fractal that we were calling the Mountain Fractal. And that's been in development for a little while now, and we're getting real close to being able to share it with all of you guys. It's going to be a fairly difficult fractal. One of the biggest things that we wanted to let you guys know super early on was that it's going to ship with a challenge mode. So this is going to be the third fractal alongside Nightmare and Shattered Observatory that will have a challenge mode attached to it. And so with the challenge mode, you can expect some very heavy, difficult mechanics, lots of group coordination, and some really prestigious rewards to go alongside it.
I have a question.
Sure,
You
go
keep
ahead.
saying Mountain Fractal. You keep saying Mountain Fractal. Can we get a different name?
Yeah, I guess it's a good time to reveal the name of this fractal. So this is going to be called Sunqua Peak.
That's a good name. I like it. What can you tell us about it?
So Sunqua Peak is a sacred place where elements from all around the world kind of converge. And so you'll find a lot of different elemental enemies there. And your goal going up the mountain, I don't want to give away too much, but it will change and kind of reveal itself as you're going through. The mountain is in turmoil. And so we're really trying to lean into bringing peace to this place. I think we have a little bit of a kind of a teaser preview of a layout.
Let's see the early sketch.
Yeah, so, all right. So the origins of this fractal, yeah, the origins of this fractal is really interesting. A little while ago, we had an idea for a different fractal. It was actually going to be coming out between Nightmare and Shattered Observatory, and was going to be following the storyline of Arc a little bit further. And this fractal ended up not releasing because we ended up scrapping that and going with Shattered Observatory. But we had this prototype map, which was just really awesome, and we didn't want to just throw it away. So as we were talking about what this new fractal was going to be, this map and the previous iteration of it came up, and we thought, yeah, let's revisit that. Let's see if we could do that again. And that fractal was early on, or early enough in its development that we were able to take a lot of liberties with redesigning parts of it. We gave it a huge facelift to make it kind of match our current visual standards. And that picture that we showed earlier was just, it was me sitting down and being like, all right, how do I take all of the elements that we currently have in this map and kind of like rearrange them and redesign them in a way that feels a little bit better in terms of flow, is conducive to the challenge mode fractal environment that we really want to have. So like where are the spaces for like the boss fights and the places where you get to learn mechanics that then build on each other as you go through the fractal that you then get tested on at the very end. And yeah, I kind of like drew that together on a tablet and showed it to the team and was like, yeah, final map art. You can just port this in game and we're good to go, saving us a ton of time.
Is that how that works? It's good to know. So I don't want to like push you into spoiling too much because we're so close. September 15th. But can you tell us a little bit about the story?
Sure. So I mentioned earlier that the elements of this mountain are in turmoil. The mountain itself is in turmoil, and it's a sacred place. And so you're going to be going through and finding ways of bringing peace to these elements. And along the way, you're going to be discovering exactly what is causing them to kind of go out of whack and go crazy. And the answer will surprise you. There is some narrative behind this fractal that is hidden beneath the surface of what you see in the gameplay. So for those of you who like to go and explore and kind of get a look behind the curtain of what's going on, we have a lot in the fractal that will illuminate a lot of the content that you're experiencing and give you a glimpse into the history of this place and why it is the way it is now.
All right, so I have a couple more questions for you, and you're finally getting to talk about this thing that you've been working on for so long. We That was fantastic. So you and I are going to do a guild chat the Friday before this fractal releases on September 11th, that Friday. We're going to give a preview of this fractal. Just so you guys get a little advanced peek at it. But for now, do you want to talk about any of the mechanics or the gameplay, or do you want to hold that for the preview?
I think I want everybody to go in as blind and as fresh as possible. So
This is fair.
we'll keep it a secret for now.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to share about this? Can we take another peek at your concept art?
Sure. Yeah, really the only other thing that I'd like to say is, the Fractals community, the in-game community, you guys are awesome. And we really love to build content that you guys just get to like chew on and try to solve puzzles and figure out how to best, complete the content and then how to really maximize your efficiency at it. So we spent a lot of time this time around thinking of ways to create an encounter that it feels different from what we've done before. It still has that Guild Wars 2 essence, that focus on action combat that you've seen in the other challenge mode fractals. But we've taken it to a different level. And so you're going to have to, learn some new skills along the way. I'm absolutely confident that you guys are going to be able to complete it really quickly. But it's going to take a lot of hard work and communication and dedication. And also, for those of you who are going to be taking on the challenge mode, there's something a little bit different this time around that I think you guys are going to enjoy.
I'm so curious now. Yeah, I kind of want to get in there and play with it some more early, just to get my own sneak peek. So you guys, we are 3 weeks out. We are so close.
Super excited to share more info with everyone.
Yeah. All right, so we have one more thing. I am making sure we are good to go over here. Thank you very much for that, Cameron. We do have one more thing to share with you guys. If you guys would like one more surprise, I'm assuming you probably do. I'm not going to give it a big intro because it doesn't need one. Mark, you want to go?
This land, it's a monument to mortal resilience. They built new lives upon the very thing that sought to end theirs. Portals are little flames, brilliant, hot, then gone. Those who face eternity easily forget what a lifetime means, what an ending means.
You know it doesn't have to be this way.
No, Kunavine, it does. They need me.
Cantha confirmed. End of Dragons 2021. And honestly, I'm distracted, Cameron. I don't know if you're watching chat, but how long have we been waiting to show this to you guys?
Oh my god.
Not a lot more to say, you guys. Stick around to this channel. At noon, in about 19 minutes, we're going to have Annie back on here with some of our friends at Origin PC. She's going to be running one of the Origin PC crew through the new player experience. I am excited that you guys are happy to see this. And if you want to watch it over and over and over and over, go to guildwars2.com. We will have it up there pretty soon. Cameron's Fractal is coming in 3 weeks. Guild Wars 2 is coming to Steam in November. We have an exciting time ahead of us, and I am so glad you were all here for this. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for being here for the anniversary live stream. Thank you for playing with us in Tyria every day and for letting us continue to bring this game to you. Have fun. We will see you in game.
Can you please say Cantha confirmed 7 times really fast? Go!
Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm, Cantha confirm.
Oh my god!